What's up, everybody? Demon back, and welcome to a brand new Godzilla-Thon. I am bursting with enthusiasm for this review. I cannot wait to get into this. If you could tell, I am not happy. Yeah, no, man, I didn't realize how bad this movie was up until I had to rewatch it for Godzilla-Thon. So, let's get into it. This is going to be, I think it's like the 13th Godzilla-Thon for Godzilla vs. Hedorah, Godzilla vs. the Smog Monster, 1971. Let's get into it. This isn't even really a movie. There's no plot. It's just a bunch of scenes put in a random order. Nothing makes sense. It is absolutely awful. It is so incredibly bad. Oh my god, man. There is... I went on the whole time of that sea monster review talking about how that was my least favorite movie. Hedorah, Horror of the Deep. I hated that Godzilla movie. It was my least favorite Godzilla movie. This one gives it a run for its money. It might even win because I remembered this one to be at the very least decent. I remembered it being not good. I knew it wasn't good, but I remembered it to be decent. And I sat down. I've never been that bored watching a movie in my life. This movie is so bad. And I even have good childhood memories of it too, which is the weird thing. I used to love this movie. I would rent it from Blockbuster. Like every time I went to Blockbuster, I'd rent this one. I remember the old DVD case. I used to love it. I didn't own this one. This was actually one of the most recent ones I ever got. I have it on. It's one of the only ones I have on Blu-ray, funny enough. But yeah, when I just remember I used to love this movie, and I don't know how. Probably because when you're a child, you know, everything in your brain, it feels like you're just constantly recovering from a bad acid trip. So now that I'm older and my brain can comprehend things, and now I realize this movie just is a bad acid trip, right? And everyone makes that joke, but it's true. Like, as a little kid, you don't realize it. You just accept it as like, oh yeah, this is a normal thing. When you watch this movie older, it is so freaking bad. It's so bizarre. I hate this movie so much. Let's get into the best thing I could ever do for a plot synopsis. Like I said, there's no plot. It is just scenes put in a random order. Like, certain events, they could happen in whatever order you please. This movie would not be affected if you changed the order at all. Like, nothing flows at all. The pacing is so damn slow. I'm reviewing the Japanese cut, by the way. The English cut, you know, I prefer the English cut over the Japanese cut. Nothing different about it. It's just, you know, that's the one I watched as a kid. So at least there I'm like, oh, I remember this as a child. And when I watch the Japanese cut, it's somewhat like that. It's like, oh yeah, I remember this scene of Godzilla flying as a child. But now it's more like, oh god damn, how did I like this movie? It's so bad. So let's get into the review. We start out with the James Bond style intro, just a girl singing over the screen, like a painted green girl singing, and lots of shots of pollution. It's the song's called "Save the Earth," I think, something like that. And the song basically sings about pollution, the danger of it. It's actually a pretty catchy song. That's one of the good things about this movie, and it's also one of the bad things about this movie. It's a pretty catchy song, so I'll get into why it's a bad thing at the end, I guess. I enjoy it when they sing it at the start, and then, you know, we cut to some shots of pollution, the music slows down, the James Bond intro's over, music slow down. Now we meet our main character, a little kid, Ken. Now, Kenny is not that bad because, you know, no one in this movie's good. So you can't really single him out as being an awful character like you can in Gamera movies, because there are no good characters in this movie. So everyone is terrible. Everyone is so bad to watch. You're bored during all of it. And you know, even Godzilla vs. Sea Monster does better than this. You have interesting characters. Granted, I could never remember or pronounce their names, but they're better than these idiots. So, oh god, man. And if you could tell, I'm a bit more aggressive this review than I was in my Sea Monster review because I knew I hated Sea Monster going into that. It's been I do Godzilla-Thon every year. I don't watch Godzilla vs. Hedorah every year. And it's not like I watch Sea Monster every year. It's not like I intentionally just didn't watch Hedorah every year. It's that I didn't really have a Blu-ray player up until recently at the house that I usually do Godzilla-Thon at. So I never had the ability to watch this for Godzilla-Thon. I just was always like, oh, I remember this from a child. It's not that bad. I'll watch like Cinemassacre's Monster Madness review of it, and that'll be good. So, oh man. Anyways, this is my first time watching it in about 2 years, but back a couple years ago when I very first got the Blu-ray, I watched it like a ton. I watched it that summer that I got it. I got it for Christmas. That summer that I got it, I watched it a ton, and I don't know how. It is awful. Mostly because back at the time it was one of the only Godzilla movies I had at my dad's house. Now that I have it over at my mom's house, I have every Godzilla movie over here. Oh, Jesus Christ. So it's just like in a pile. Like in the movie shelf of my movie shelves, which is just the kaiju movies that I have and then some Walking Dead. In this movie shelf, it's got to be the worst thing there. And, Sea Monster's also there. This movie, I don't know which one's worse, honestly, though. Sea Monster, I had some enjoyment in it, alright? There was that one scene in particular when, who is it? Akira Takarada blast that dude in the face with that smoke bomb. That was really awesome. And, Godzilla is not terrible in that movie despite looking retarded. This movie is so bleak and unfun. It is ridiculous. I don't know how they pulled that off. Alright, where were we? So we meet Ken. Ken is attacked by a man-sized Hedorah. Oh, also before this, okay, no. So we meet Ken. He's playing with Godzilla toys, right? Doesn't make a lot of sense. We're not in the Godzilla's Revenge universe where they're all movies. Now we're back in the traditional show Toho universe, which Godzilla's a real thing. He's a threat. He's killed people. The last exposure to Godzilla people had in continuity, the last wide-scale exposure in public people had to Godzilla, he wasn't necessarily a superhero. It was Invasion of Astro Monster, where, yeah, he fought Hedorah, but they also put him under mind control. He also wiped out, like, a whole village and a city, and he killed lots of people that movie. So, I'm thinking in this show universe, it doesn't make a lot of sense that they're making Godzilla toys, and they also have a Hedorah toy in the background. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, why would this little kid love Godzilla the way he does when in this universe Godzilla has done some okay things up to this point, but for the most part he's generally not a good guy. This movie is where his character really changes, and we'll get into that when we talk about Godzilla at the end, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. He's playing with his Godzilla toys, sending them down the slide of all things. What little kid gets Godzilla toys and like pushes them down the slide instead of making them fight? Even the kid from what movie is it? Final Wars, I think. Yeah, it's definitely Final Wars. Even that kid plays with like his Godzilla toys. He throws Anguirus in the fire because you don't have them just like slide down a slide. You have them fight. This kid's just even the way he plays with toys makes me hate him. So a tadpole is found. It's a tiny little black squirm. It's Hedorah. So this big monster, a big version of this tadpole, sinks some ship. It's a cool tie into 54. We'll get into the 54 parallels here towards the end. So he pushes this guy down the ship. Or what am I even talking about now? I'm just so... I hate this movie so much. Anyways, okay, so Hedorah sinks the ship, alright? Hedorah sinks the ship, it's on the news. That's kind of cool, actually. I do like the public reaction in this movie. It is very relevant, and we do see lots of news reports about all this stuff. Lots of ways that people will start taking advantage of it in advertising campaigns with these Hedorah gas masks. Really cool ideas, just an awful movie. So Ken is attacked by a man-sized Hedorah. He's playing on a beach. It jumps out of the water. He cuts it open with his knife. It lands in the water, attacks Ken's dad, who also happens to be a professor. Ken's dad's face gets burnt off, and his body's all ripped up. There are multiple forms of Hedorah. That's where all the Shin Gojira joke starts from. Multiple forms, multiple monsters, too. There's there's not just one Hedorah at the start of the movie. There's many of them. And the movie implies at the very end that there are still many of them. So there's multiple Hedorah monsters. That's how there's one that was able to attack Kenny. One was able to sink a ship. And then they have one tiny one in captivity. Ships are being wrecked all over the place. Cut to Godzilla roaring in front of the sun. Cut back to pollution. Then all of a sudden Godzilla shows up, although it's a different Godzilla suit and it's really noticeable. Shows up, sets the pollution on fire with his atomic breath. That's where a lot of people thought that he has fire breath, because it sets everything on fire in the Showa universe. Even I used to think that as a little kid. So all Hedorahs can morph into one monster, make them all really big. Maybe that's where the inspiration from Destroya came from. Destroya also has multiple forms, multiple monsters that can turn into one big thing. Kong's... Yeah, okay, so... I know you're like, what are you talking about, Kong? This is legit. So a Kong-sized Hedorah, and Kong size not being like Kong Skull, it could be close to Kong Skull, like 100 feet. That might make sense. He's probably in between 50 to 100 feet sized Hedorah, maybe around 75 foot sized Hedorah, shows up on land, smokes some factory. Yeah, that sounds weird, but he like legit goes up to the smokestacks and then inhales in this factory. Breathes in some pollution. Godzilla shows up, atomic breaths him, and then they get into like a little skirmish. Nothing really happens at this point. It's just such a long fight too, and it just doesn't stop. So fish heads in a bar. You can't really make sense of that. The dude just starts hallucinating fish masked head people. Godzilla and Hedorah continue to fight. It lasts way too long. Nothing happens throughout the fight. Really uninteresting. Then each monster leaves. Hedorah is an alien, it's revealed. Godzilla is maybe spotted by some kid on by Kenny on a roller coaster. He just like sees the blob of Godzilla in the distance, possibly. Hedorah destroys some stuff, including him forcing someone to commit suicide and then knocking down a building in slow motion. Hedorah evolves, eats some cars, flies away. That could be the inspiration for Kamate-kun's landing. Some of the visuals are very parallel to that. That'd be a really cool reference, because Shin Gojira is a way better movie, and I hate this movie so much. I've been doing it for the past couple of Godzilla-thons now. I even forgot to put Shin Godzilla into this thumbnail. I usually have the title Shin Gojira written in Japanese in each thumbnail. This one's the first one for a while now that I haven't done it. So if you've been able to spot them all for the past couple weeks ever since Ebro Horror of the Deep, good for you. This week there's not going to be one. I'll see if I can remember to put one in all the rest of them though. Godzilla, and it's not because that's my favorite, it's just because that's the most relevant at the time I'm making this. So, this Godzilla-thon. Godzilla, fights him again. Hedorah flies off. Some people are disintegrated. That scene used to scare the crap out of me as a little kid. When Hedorah flies over those people and they disintegrate into bones, oh, I used to watch that as a kid. I'd freak out. That was terrifying. I'd always think, there was like a little creek down by my house, or it wasn't terribly close to my house at the time. I now live right next door to it, but at the time it was near a park that I used to go to often, and it was a little bit of a drive back then. So, but that's not important. Anyways, there was this creek, and there was this mud in the creek, but the mud looked like black tar, and so as a little kid I'd always imagine, oh shoot, that's Hedorah, and then in my head, my imagination would run with it, and then it'd freak me out, because I was like, oh, wait, that is Hedorah, and I might get disintegrated, and I'd always not want to be in that area, yet at the same time I'd always want to be in that area, because I'd always pretend I was Godzilla, and I'd want to fight it, but at the same time, I'd never want to get dirty, and I would always think that it might actually be Hedorah and disintegrate me. Little kids' brains works weird, alright? Like I said, a little kid is always on an acid trip. It takes till you're older to realize why this movie sucks. So, we get a lot of downtime, Hedorah killing people here and there, anti-Hedorah oxygen masks, one of the only interesting ideas in this movie, and it's very briefly touched up upon. We only see it in one TV cartoon ad. Also, the cartoons come out of nowhere in this movie. They just kind of happen, and then we're just supposed to accept that now we're just watching a cartoon for a little bit. Super weird. Oh, man. So, explanation from people that from the professor, that Hedorah will keep growing from, what am I even trying to say here? I just literally wrote down the subtitles and I can't even understand it. So I guess the gist of it is because there's so much pollution, Hedorah will keep growing from it. He'll get to a massive size, potentially bigger than Godzilla. Some little kid just comes up with the idea, oh man, he's gonna climb Mount Fuji. Ken comes up with that idea. He's like, oh, I know, Hedorah's gonna climb Mount Fuji. And everyone just goes, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then Hedorah does. Like, where does he get this information? Why does it happen? I don't know. There is no plot to this movie. Things just happen for no reason, no explanation. I hate this movie so much, guys. Hedorah will keep growing from pollution. This is also where it's finally, even though the audience should have figured it out by now, it's spoon-fed to you that he's evolving throughout the movie. So now we have a rock party. It starts out in this, like, for whatever reason, they're like, oh, you know, we're going to be all artsy-fartsy with it and just have it be like some black and white, you know, little thing of some dude playing an acoustic guitar in a meadow on Mount Fuji, and then all of a sudden it just, like, they're all like, oh, we're gonna die, rock on! And they break into this rock party in the meadows of Mount Fuji. Hedorah and Godzilla show up there. They're still fighting. Yeah, their fight lasts the whole goddamn movie, and nothing happens until the last 5 minutes. So, Godzilla crashes the band party. There's a bonfire there as well. That's used to the humans' disadvantage here later, even though they try to make it work for them. Godzilla loses an eye, one of the only interesting ideas throughout the whole movie. Godzilla getting shot in the eye with this acid, sulfuric acid that Hedorah contains, loses an eye from it. It'd be really cool if that scar from Hedorah carried over into the next movies, although suddenly his eye is just grown back by the next movie. So, he loses an eye or something, maybe, because, like I said, it shows back up next movie. Maybe it's just patched over for some reason. Then Hedorah maybe loses an eye or something, because Godzilla punches into his eye. And maybe Ken, his brother, is probably killed. Unknown, you know, his brother, it could be his brother. I don't know what their relation is. The older guy throughout the movie who was hallucinating the people with fish heads decided, oh, everyone attack Hedorah with the bonfire, and then they run up to Hedorah throwing fire torches at him. He shoots this guy in the body with some sulfuric acid, and the guy kind of, like, maybe melts away, maybe doesn't. It doesn't look like he melts, but at the same time, everyone else is steaming around him. But that actor is never seen again. That character is never seen again throughout the rest of the movie. So presumably he died, and Ken was just like, you know, that was going to happen anyway. So he's not even sad. There's no emotional connection to any of the characters here. Ken, the character, doesn't even care when his own family gets killed right in front of him. He's more of just like, oh, that would suck if that was me, wouldn't it, lady who I'm with? And I don't know our relation either. I don't know that chick's relation. I'm that band singer chick who sings Save the Earth in the bar. Godzilla is dropped into a ditch after Hedorah picks him up, drops him there, pours some sludge all over him, as Cinemassacre put it, the best way he could. Dumps some dookie slime on him, which is not incorrect. That is exactly what happens. Hedorah shoots down some choppers with his eye laser, not in a cool Kong Skull Island style way, taking out the choppers, more of in a let's pad out the runtime of this movie even more for some reason kind of way. Some electric anti-units for Hedorah are put up against Hedorah to try and kill him, however they're not used for a really long time. Godzilla finally wakes his butt up again. Everyone panics because Hedorah is like gonna intrude on their setting up of these electric units. Godzilla and Hedorah fight a little more. Hedorah blows up some choppers after Godzilla is once again knocked out or something. I don't remember because, you know, this movie's very unmemorable. Alright, so Hedorah blows up some more choppers. Godzilla, yeah, I'm skipping way far in here because there's like literally 10 whole minutes dedicated to close-up shots of Hedorah slowly walking his butt in front of these electric units while these headlights on these cars are flickering in his face. So much time is dedicated to showing him lumber over there at an incredibly slow pace after we see him fly around all over Tokyo moving really fast. Now we have to spend 10 minutes seeing him take one step at a time towards these headlights. So Godzilla wakes up again or something, shows back up in the fight at the very least. He activates these electric grids by blowing his atomic breath on them. They seem to work to kill Hedorah because they start shooting electricity on him and he's getting all injured by it. Godzilla pulls out some balls from inside Hedorah. Doesn't explain what they are or where they came from. He just rips out 2 white orbs from inside Hedorah and then just holds them and disintegrates them. Hedorah flies away. Godzilla flies after him. Everyone who knows this movie talks about how awful this scene is or how weird it is. Yeah, it is, everything they say about it's true. Godzilla gets into this odd position, then he lifts off on the ground, he blasts his atomic breath into the ground, uses it to fly through the air, flies after Hedorah, catches up with him, and then grabs Hedorah, flies him back to the area where the electric units are. Godzilla disintegrates Hedorah with the electric panels. Godzilla rips apart Hedorah's dead body. That's the thing that I always used to recreate with that mud puddle outside that park, is I'd take a stick and I'd just fling that stuff everywhere, thinking if it was Hedorah, I was going to tear him apart just like Godzilla. Godzilla wins. The human wins. That's when the movie ends. Way too long after it should have ended right after the song Save the Earth plays, because that was the only good part of the movie. And, okay, so the movie drags way too much. There is no pacing issues because there is no pacing. It is a slow crawl all the way through. Yeah, that's pacing, D-Man. Get out of here. Stop watching my review. If you're going to talk back to me right now, oh, man, you're in for it. So, I get it. Some people like this movie. I don't know why, but they do. It made a comeback in the Godzilla community just because everyone says it's so ahead of its time. Oh, look at Shin Godzilla. It's pretty much the same movie. No, it's not. It is not. The only reason you're saying that is because there's a multiple formed evolving creature and it's in a Godzilla series. They're not the same movie. Shin Godzilla is a political satire. This movie's like don't pollute, it's gonna kill us all because it'll spawn in a giant space monster that'll dump dookie slime on your cat and Godzilla. God, dude, they're not the same movie. This movie, I get it, the ideas are ahead of its time with some of the dark visuals, the very grounded, realistic take on everything. Even though this movie is anything but realistic, it does approach it from a realistic standpoint. God, man. So the music, alright, so like I said, there's no plot, just a whole bunch of scenes in a random order. The music, it is alright, alright? There's 3 good songs in here, okay? There's Godzilla's reveal song, there's Godzilla's song when he flies, Save the Earth. The only 3 good songs in this movie, and they're played to death. And they start out bearable, and then they overplay them to the point where I can't stand to listen to them anymore, and it irritates me when they play them. And that's about it. There's like 4 new songs for the movie. 3 of them are good. They replay those 4 songs constantly. Then we get huge time gaps where there's no music at all. It is worse than Godzilla Raids Again on that aspect of just the long, awkward silence. There's scenes of this movie with no audio. A scene where a dude jumps off a building, killing himself. Hedorah passes through the building, and then we watch it fall to pieces slowly. This scene has no audio. It is silent. There are some other scenes like this, just silent. Oh my god, maybe if the music was better, this movie wouldn't suck as bad. I don't think that's the case. I think this is just an awful movie, and there's no getting around that. But I hate this movie so much. I think I hate it worse than Sea Monster, probably. So, the music, it is not terrible up until they overplay it, and then at this point, the music sucks. The humans are boring, unlikable. You don't know any of their names other than Ken, just because it's funny to make fun of Kennys, just because of Mystery Science Theater 3000. So that's the only reason the character named Kenny is rememberable. Every other character, you don't care about them. You don't care what happens to them. In fact, I'm rooting for most of them to die. When they do die, there's no emotional impact because you feel nothing for them. Way too much time is spent on these guys, and this is the epitome of a bad monster movie. And this is the kind of movie that gives Godzilla a bad rep, because everyone's like, oh, this is Godzilla, there's a bunch of cheesy people in rubber suits beating each other up. Well, you have boring human characters. Yeah, this is where it comes from, movies like this. Alright, that is... oh my god. What else? Human characters are awesome. Yeah, they're awesome, guys. They're the best ones we've ever had. Kenny's a real kind of likable, relatable character that you can root for. The professor in this movie easily tops Serizawa for how great he is, because this movie is just so good. You gotta go see it. Anyways, back to the actual stuff. So, human characters, they suck. Alright, Godzilla, he gets random character development and random powers. Let's get into that. Okay, so throughout the whole series up to this point, Godzilla has not been a good guy. A lot of people think Ghidorah is where he becomes a good guy. It's not. He's not a good guy in Ghidorah. He's doing it for himself. He fights Ghidorah just to save his own skin. Then, Invasion of Astro Monster, he fights Ghidorah because he has to. Alright? He doesn't have any choice. He just has to. Then, he wakes up right next to the thing he just had to get off Earth like a year before. He's gonna have to fight this guy. And he also is put on Planet X where he has to fight him either way. So, then, Son of Godzilla, he's definitely not a good guy. He tramples through the humans' base. He terrifies the people. He leaves his son to die throughout the majority of the movie up until the last scene. He's not a good guy. He's just doing his own thing. Same thing with Sea Monster. He's not a good guy, even though they try and make it like Godzilla saved us at the end of the movie. He's not a good guy. He didn't save anyone. He more of just showed up. He woke up. He wakes up on the island for some reason, destroys the Red Bamboo base, knocks out some jets out of the sky, fights off Mothra, and then kills Hedorah. That's all that he does. He's not been a good guy up to this point, and then all of a sudden he's just a really good guy. Now, people like Adam Noyce have overanalyzed this, and that's not a bad thing, because I love his video talking about this. The characterization of Showa Godzilla, he goes into it. Basically, he breaks down like this. This is what I was talking about with the 54 throwbacks, is... the movie is very similar to 54, just I think it's a bad version of it. So you get mysterious ship sinking, lots of mystery leading up to what's going on there with Hedorah sinking ships, Godzilla sinking ships, Hedorah being just this emotionless, gonna kill you all for turning me into this creature kind of monster, the same way Godzilla was back in 54. That's where Adam says Godzilla's character development comes in, is because he sees what he used to be or what his ancestor was, and he realizes, oh man, this used to be me, which is also why he's constantly trying to bargain with Hedorah throughout the movie. They're constantly just roaring at one another and spending no time fighting when they're roaring at one another. The same way Sonda bargains with Gaira to get them to stop fighting, they do in this movie with Godzilla and Hedorah. It doesn't work here. And if you want to read it like that, you can. I read it as Godzilla just is a good guy for the sake of being a good guy. He's a good guy before he even meets Hedorah in this movie, or at least the public views him as that. At the very least, Kenny does. The character development comes out of nowhere. Where does he get the flying power? He's never had it before. He never has it again. It doesn't make any sense. This is like the same kind of way Superman used to just make up powers that Godzilla just does. So it comes out of nowhere. I don't like it. I don't like the new powers. I don't like him being a good guy. I hate him being the superhero. Every shot lasts too long. It's very confusing. It's just a drug trip of scenes. There's random life lessons about pollution and nebulas and stars and how industries work. There's random cartoon cutaways that we spend too much time on, and they come out of nowhere. And then, oh yeah, Godzilla's thrown in just for the sake of it being a Godzilla movie. Did I mention the pollution stuff yet? Because it is all over in this movie. Way too on the nose, way too in your face. There's no subtlety to it. 54 is a very subtle movie. It's not like flat out stated, oh my, this is a walking atomic bomb. In this movie, it is flat out stated, oh my, this is walking pollution and it's gonna kill us. We need to stop polluting or it will keep killing us. Yeah, thanks guys for spelling it out for us. Like, we couldn't figure that out on our own. This movie sucks. 4 out of 10. Worse than Sea Monster after rewatching it. Mostly just because I remembered it to be halfway decent. I knew it made a comeback in the community. I figured that was for a reason. It wasn't. This movie sucks. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I certainly didn't. D-Man out.